Thank you very much, Mayor. I just want to reintroduce myself. My name is John Leone. I'm Senior Director of Government Community Relations for New Jersey Transit. I'd also like to take a moment right now just to say hello and recognize some people from New Jersey Transit that are here. I would like to begin by first recognizing our Chief Financial Officer, Kim Fakari. She's over there. Thank you, Kim, for coming. I also want to recognize the Senior Director of our Real Estate and Economic Development Department, Jeff Nadell. And I also want to recognize Mike Murphy, who's a project manager for economic development and real estate development for New Jersey Transit. Those are people that have been actively involved with this effort, and they've been working very hard to make sure that what we do is consistent with the best interests of all the stakeholders that are interested in Hoboken and its future. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My connection to Hoboken is that I went to Stevens Institute of Technology where I graduated. So for 4 years, Hoboken was my home away from home, and I have a great love for the city, and I spent a lot of time here. So I want to make sure that you know that my interests are for the benefit of not only New Jersey Transit, but for the residents of New Jersey, of Hoboken. The mayor made reference to an interlocal agreement that she had sent to us. She's correct. That is currently being reviewed by our Deputy Attorney General's office, and I'm hopeful that they'll have an answer for us on how do we move forward. But as I've assured her in the past, and I want to assure publicly everyone here, it is our intention to work with the community to make sure that whatever development happens here, and what you'll be hearing today is a proposal, not a final plan by any stretch of the imagination. I want to make sure that you know, and the mayor knows, and the council members know, that it is our intent to make sure that whatever moves forward has the full consent of everyone who has a stake in this city. And that's our commitment. We've done redevelopment in other communities, and without exception, the only way redevelopment works, especially transit-oriented development, is to make sure that the municipality in which the facilities that we have are hosted have the full support of that community. Otherwise, it doesn't work. The agenda for today is, as you see on the screen. I'm going to be making a general overview presentation of what we are proposing to do. The details will be covered by our architect, Christopher Takis. He's a person, when you see the presentation, who will walk you through all the elements that you'll find hopefully of interest. And the most important part to remember is the reason we're having this meeting is to solicit your input. As I said, this is a preliminary concept plan. We think it makes a lot of sense. I'm personally very excited about it. I think it makes a lot of sense for everyone. But it's up to you to give us feedback, to see how we make it better, to see what elements need to be changed and modified to make it consistent with the needs of your city. And it is your city. This, as you all know, is the terminal. It was built in 1907. I was fortunate enough to be here 3 years ago when we celebrated the 100th anniversary of the terminal. The clock tower, which had been missing for more than a generation, was restored on that auspicious date. And now we have a terminal that is being advanced and significant improvements are taking place. The terminal is unique by its very nature. We have over 50,000 people that come to this terminal on a daily basis. This unique station and terminal by virtue of all the modes of transportation that are here. We have commuter rail that carry over 17,000 people on a daily basis. We have light rail, which is a new introduction, which has been very successful. We have the ferries, we have the buses, we have PATH. We have the ability to take a taxi here. You can walk here, you can bike here. This is a unique terminal. It has a historical character that is unparalleled anywhere. And by virtue of all the elements that are here, it makes Hoboken Terminal and Hoboken City a very special place. I wanted to give you a sense of our commitment to Hoboken and public transportation. Over the last 10 years, we've invested over $2 billion to introduce light rail. The light rail goes from North Bergen down to Bayonne, with Hoboken being at the center and being at the crux of the transportation hub. The number of people that are currently using the light rail is 40,000 per day. But what's interesting is, and this demonstrates how important it is to Hoboken, nearly a quarter of all those 40,000 people who use it on a daily basis come from Hoboken. either the terminal and 2nd Street or 9th Street. So Hoboken plays a critical role in the investment of $2 billion in this system. Goes by far to benefit Hoboken. We're currently in the midst of renovating the piers for the ferries that will be launched from there. We're spending $119 million to do that. That work is ongoing, and we're hopeful that by next summer, summer 2011, only a few short months from now, that'll be completed. If you look through those painted panels over there, that'll be the grand entrance that will take you into this brand new ferry area. So you're going to have the opportunity to go right into this waiting area and traverse right into the ferry area. Or you can take a train, or you can walk down there and take a path or the commuter rail, or go outside and take a taxi. It's really quite remarkable. We spent $5 million on restoring this landmark of clock tower, which puts Hoboken squarely in a quite visible place from a distance, especially from across the river. This very room where we're located was restored, and we spent $12 million. And if I do say so myself, I think it's a great space that has been restored faithfully to its historic original character. We've also spent a significant amount of money on repairing the infrastructure, things you may not see, but that are crucial to making sure that the terminal functions properly. We recently introduced a walkway that connects Hoboken to Jersey City, creating more linkages between the various people who need to use public transportation and the terminal. Now, the one thing that I will point out, even though we spent a significant amount of money, as I've just demonstrated, in investing in Hoboken Terminal and in Hoboken, there's still much more that needs to be done. I don't have to tell anyone who uses this terminal on a regular basis and walks here, and I hope most of you do, that the pedestrian access is really in dire need of improvement. If you take a look at this photograph, it shows how people are basically going through a corridor, almost like cattle, I hate to say it, but it's really not befitting of this great city. Bike racks. There is not sufficient bicycle storage capacity at this terminal. Someone mentioned to me, and it's anecdotal, so don't quote me on it, but I understand there's about 50 official bike racks, but that the need for bike racks are at least 3 times that. And people are attaching their bicycles to fence posts or whatever standing object may be available, and I think that needs to be addressed. It's also important that we have some kind of a storage capability so people can not only leave their bikes and chain them to a fence or to a bike rack, but have an opportunity to leave them, almost like a valet type service. And that's something that I think we can bring to the table. Open space. The Warrington Plaza that's out there is greatly underutilized. It's great space, but it's really not being used effectively and sufficiently. And it could be a great open space. It could be a marketplace, a farmer's market. It could be a convenient meeting place for Hoboken residents. Underutilized space that needs to be better used. This is a reference, a tease, so to speak, of what the presentation and some of the improvements that we could make. Now, for New Jersey Transit, a very significant aspect of why we're involved in this development. And remember, we're not a development agency, we're a public transportation agency. And our rationale for being involved in any aspect of development is because it makes sense from the perspective of being able to acquire the necessary funds that allow us to make the improvements to public transportation. The bus terminal that you see here is really not adequate. It needs to be replaced. We've spent a lot of time and effort and money on the ferries, on the commuter rails, on the light rail, and the missing element is the bus terminal. But as you may have read in the paper, funding, which in the past might have been available, and you've got to remember, not remember, but be aware that our capital dollars for investing in the improvement of our facilities come from the Transportation Trust Fund, which many of you have read is running out of money very quickly, and a match by the federal government. And with those funding sources becoming less likely, it is incumbent on us, if we want to maintain our infrastructure, to do innovative things, such as development, to be able to fund the necessary improvements so we can make public transportation that much better for all of you and those who depend on it. So what are we looking at? We're looking at a development, and I'll speak briefly as to it before we get to the details of it, but we're looking at a development alluded to before. And it'll get us a new bus station, new public plaza with the marketplace capability, expanded pedestrian access and connections, same for bicycle access and storage, enhanced path access, even though we don't manage the path. Part of this project will improve those entrances. This is an overview of the property that we are considering right now for redevelopment. If you look to your right, that covered shed is the bus terminal. The area immediately to the left is an antiquated, underutilized, and dilapidated building. That is the place where we propose to put a building. We're looking at a building that will be no taller than the W, looking at a place that will be about less than 500,000 square feet. And I'll go into a little more detail about those elements. The location of it is, if you know where Texas, Arizona is, it's basically across the street from Texas, Arizona. That's the location that we're looking at. This is a representation of some of the improvements of that very area. This is the area looking south to where the bus terminal is. If you were sitting at Texas, Arizona, this might be the view you would see. I keep mentioning Texas, Arizona. So let me talk a little bit about this development in broad terms. It's one building, as I mentioned. We were approached by this world-class company who wants to relocate to Hoboken. They specifically want to be close to Hoboken and close to transit. And there's no better location on the planet, quite honestly, that gives them everything that they're looking for. They're looking at multiple sites in the area or possibly leaving the state. So the option that's before all of us here, working as a team, is are we willing to work together to try to make it easy for them to see that there's a potential for them to relocate here. They're working on a lease that will expire in the future, so they need to have some commitments from the city, from all of us, that in fact this space is available to them for development. And that's very important because it is very time sensitive. And if we fail to take advantage of this opportunity, it'll pass us. And we're looking at a building and an opportunity that will bring significant number of employees to Hoboken, significant economic opportunities, which I'll talk to you about in a moment. Let me talk briefly about transit-oriented development and what that is. As a transit agency, we have a motivation to try to develop opportunities as close to transit facilities as possible. And you can all appreciate why. The closer you are to a transit facility, the more likely you are going to use it. And we want to encourage people to use public transportation. Right now, only about 10% of the population of New Jersey depends on public transportation. And we'd like to increase that number if we can.